good way to tell if you are doing the turnaround correctly in that part of the work is to see if there's a feeling of lessening of emotion. Is the balloon of projection of all this overreaction of emotion. You see, projection is characterized by the emotional energy that's in that sort of balloon. As you turn it around and as you work with it, is that deflating? Is the energy going out of it? Is there less energy? Are you feeling less negativity, which is really restoring? It's in the process of restoring your psychic energy. So let the air out of the balloon of all of this blaming, getting aggravated, getting ticked, starting to pick on somebody. You know, and the good place to watch for it is when you're getting petty. You know, when you're judging somebody and it's petty. I keep saying that, but it'll get to the place where you aren't really blaming much, or you aren't projecting much. It will get better and better. And the only thing that will bother you will be the petty little things. And then you'll realize how big those petty little things are, and the big things inside of you that they're connected to, that you haven't accepted, that you haven't loved, that you haven't said okay to, that keep you at odds with yourself and on the end of your weaknesses, rather than really free to play to your strengths. You have two guides to what strengths are. One of those guides to the strengths that we're using is Rath's book, Strength Finders 2.0. All of the Gallup strengths are listed in that book. The Strength Finder strengths are listed there. That's a wonderful resource for you to go there and to find out what those strengths are. The other strengths that are the VIA strengths that we're using here are found in the Survey of Character of Strengths and Virtues, or Virtues and Strengths, by Peterson and Seligman. That's the big fat book that's a volume for any of you who are really going to do coaching and really going to apply this material. It's just a good volume to have, so you can go there and you can learn what these strengths are. And then after you learn them, it's of course learning all of the unique and idiosyncratic ways in which they apply to yourself and to the people that they're working with. Surprisingly though, we'll find again and again that our strengths exist, or our knowing about our strengths really exists within our own knowing. It's you going home to yourself and you really dedicating the time, really making the decision in your life that what you're going to do is dedicate yourself to your strengths. That you're going to dedicate yourself to working on what's good about you rather than worrying about what is negative or not positive about you. Now, those inroads, that knowing that exists within you, means stopping long enough. One of the things we've used is the lens. Use the strength as a lens. Put the strength on as a lens and pretend it's a lens and talk through it. What you're doing is you're going to a different part of your brain than you're thinking from at that particular point. We've talked about using strengths in a conversation. That is, have a conversation with your strength. Your strength says this, you say this. Your strength says this, you say this. Listen to the dialogue back and forth with your strengths. Once again, the difficulty will not be in dialoguing with your strengths. That's just not the difficulty. The difficulty is in getting ourselves to go to our strength, because we're so used to going somewhere else, especially in a time of stress. Sticking with strengths is tough. Write it in a journal. Get a journal. And of course, the best journal that I know of is the one we talked about, that Ken talked about when he opened the class last time, Plans to the Universe, is a daily guide or a daily plan where you write about your strengths, where you say, you know, I'm going to plan to use my strengths in this way and in that way throughout this day. You know, just consider it. It's like this is your real bank account. This is really where your treasure is. Not in the stock market and not on Wall Street, Main Street, all the things that we're hearing about today. The treasure that's going to get you through is really these strengths that you have within you. Go there, use them, plan them, and apply them to what you want to do over a day. Now, what I'm going to introduce earlier in this class than I have in the others is I'm going to introduce strengths and heroes, using a hero in the place of a strength, or having conversations with strengths as heroes. What this does is you begin to regard your strength as a particular hero, or somebody you regard as a hero. And it opens a deeper inner dialogue. That deeper inner dialogue causes you to, more often than not, stop yourself short when you're not using your strengths, or when you're not able to think from a strength, or when you're caught up in going away from a strength. This is the value of biography, and you've just heard me say, who would you be without your story? Well, it's who would you be without your story? Who would you be if you forgot your story long enough to get into somebody else's story, a significant biography of somebody else? Biographies are wonderful guides to other people's use of strengths, to the way other people have used strengths. And someone else's story can be significant enough to be a voice for us, to be a voice in your imagination, to be an inner voice in your inner mind, or if you are a part of the whole world of woo-woo, you can believe that people don't die, that they transition, that there are voices outside of us and beyond us, that we are, as Jung says, this collective unconscious, and just maybe we can hook into some of these voices in ways that are surprising for us. Maybe they talk back to us when we don't expect them to talk back to us. At any rate, finding a hero, what you want to do is you want to find a hero that matches a strength that you have. A hero that will talk to you about a strength that you have. And you begin forming a very personal relationship with this hero. Now let me give you some examples. Basically what the hero is going to do is, the hero is going to cause a shift in consciousness. It's going to make you think differently. It's going to get you out of the way you think. That's what the most difficult thing with all of this is thinking in a different way. Applying a strength is thinking in a different way. It's reasoning in a new and different way. So in this more rather dramatic way, as you begin to identify with somebody who's a hero, you begin to have conversations. One of my clients, for example, has 3 heroes that are wonderful for her. Anytime I'm having difficulty working with her, and anytime she can't get insight, and anytime she's stuck, she can't move, she's in a down spiral, or she's blaming her husband for this or blaming her husband for that, we're back in the blaming game, I say to her, okay, talk to me from Queen Elizabeth I. She's read a couple of biographies of Queen Elizabeth I, and Lizzie I is a very good friend of hers. She knows how to listen for this sort of voice in her, whether it's her or whether it's something else, or I don't care what it is, but there are certain characteristics that belong to Queen Elizabeth I that this client identifies with and is able to make her a hero. So I say, talk from Queen Elizabeth I. And she would say, just like that, she says, well, she would tell me, don't depend so much on men. What are you doing depending upon men? This was the queen who never let herself get attached to a man, who ran her kingdom at a distance, fell in love with a redhead and never would allow her to have him. And this one happens to like redheads. So it fits very well. As soon as we start talking about Queen Elizabeth I, she has a dialogue. She has a way to come from what it is that Queen Elizabeth would say to her. Another is Benjamin Franklin. One of her strengths is self-control and regulation. And Benjamin Franklin, remember, was an inventor. So he was, he had this control and self-regulation kind of thing, but he also stepped out, He ran the kite up to the bolt of lightning with the key on it, and, he did some rather risky things, so he's a very interesting fellow. Anytime I can get her to talk from Benjamin Franklin, what would Benjamin Franklin say? Then she'll jump right out of where she's thinking, right into a whole new place of telling me what Benjamin Franklin would say if he were in that situation. And if she's quiet long enough and listens long enough, that voice will get even stronger and stronger. Is it coming from the other side? I don't know, and I care less. As long as she's using that voice and listening to that voice to shift consciousness in a way that plugs her into her strengths. Another of her heroes is Jackie Onassis, a wonderful, rich character, and every time she thinks from Jackie Onassis and the strength that she represents, she gets a whole different take on what it is that she's doing or wanting to do, particularly when it involves her relationships with men. And she's gotten this information from reading the biographies of these people. She's gotten into good biographical material about perhaps how they thought and how they were and what their world was like.